Ffoton, I thought we might start with talking about you and your photography.
Right.
In the present day, kind of fast forward today, because it strikes me you've been really, really, really busy in the last couple of years. And certainly the beginning of this year, you've been tremendously busy with various exhibitions and things you've been doing. I think more immediately then, congratulations on the Museum Cardiff exhibition, The Valleys, the big exhibition with your print of the girls.
Yes.
When did that print go into the collection? Can you remember?
No, I can't. But I think it was a recent requisition, really. So of course, when I first came back after retirement to Wales, I did go and see Bronwyn.
Who's the curator?
As a curator, of course, as photographers, are we good editors? Are we good librarians? Well, no, I'm quite atrocious, I think to myself. But apparently I'm not that bad compared to other photographers. But of course, after lecturing for 20 years, I done no photography at all. So then coming back to Wales was a chance then to sort of collate the work and get it together. So when I first saw it, my work then was in its infancy, really. And of course, since I've been back then, I've consolidated my work. And it's gone off into different strands, really, which are easier to read and, you know, easier for sort of collector as well. Obvious, the main influence behind my work, I've got certain photographers and certain painters that have inspired me. And they've been that catalyst, you know, even now. But The Family of Man by Edward Steichen, you know, that helped me a lot to sort of collect my work in an organised fashion. So we could say Family of Blaenafon, because that's where everything started for me, Family of MERTHYR. And of course, as I was having links with the National Museum of Wales Big Pit, out of images that were just shown individually as part of a larger collective, they put forward to me, well, why don't you put this forward as a body of work? Well, a body of work that I had negated, that I hadn't printed up for over 40 years. So therefore we had then the Family of Miners. And those Family of Miners then were used for the BBC programme, The Miners Who Made Us. And they were talking then about the women's roles in the mining industry in the South Wales Valleys. So it was quite a passive role, really. Well, I didn't quite see that because as far as the family unity, the mam had quite a strong role, really. And it was a family essence of survival. So out of that then came the factory girls. So of course then I'm starting to build up a unity of work, and also then working with Kerry Thompson of the National Museum of Wales, I had a deep love for architecture, mainly through Eugene Auger and that evangelical zeal to take pictures, right, before things disappear. Well, Paris was sort of disappearing. Well, under brutal modernism within the South Wales Valley, especially within MERTHYR, wallop, everything was being stripped away. You know, our culture, all the relics of our culture were gone. So therefore, I had this evangelical zeal with architecture, take those pictures, you know, before they disappeared totally, really. And then, as a result of doing talks at the museum, art, politics, and photography, which was so highbrow, but because the local people were coming to that talk, it wasn't highbrow at all. And that went so well then that I did a staff talk for the miners in Big Pit. And then as a result of that, I thought, well, architecture is a bit cold by itself. There's got to be a human element. There's always a human element to my landscape as well, you know. So let's do miners' memoirs to go with it, to make it a bit more human. Well, the miners' memoirs have grown so strong, mainly because I've renewed relationships that commenced 2'6" underground over 40 years ago, and real warm friendships have developed, you know. And then back before I left Wales, I had work banned from the Eisteddfod, National Eisteddfod or whatever, the work on the Gurness. Now my work is being greatly respected. Whether it was nostalgia, I don't think it was nostalgia really. It was a respect that the people had for the way I worked and for my work, you know. And that's something that doesn't happen overnight. It's been the 40 years of building, and everyone wants to partake because we're recording a culture and a heritage that was so valuable, which was the foundation of my work really, but also to show a future generation.
But going back to the museum in Cardiff, with that major exhibition that's now started and goes up until, is it November, I think,
Yes,
isn't
it
it,
is,
this
yeah.
year, 2024. And we're speaking towards the end of May 2024, when the exhibition has just opened. Because the Miners and the Factory Girls, you've had that in the Winding House Museum in
Yes.
Tredegar.
Yes, indeed.
That was back in March.
Yes.
Yeah. But before that, you had the family of Blaenafon,
Yes.
the major exhibition for which you won an award as well. Congratulations.
Yes,
So local.
that's just filled up the sort of workman's hall in Blaenafon. Yeah.
That was what, Best Heritage Initiative,
Yes,
I
it
think.
was.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. And the most gratifying thing about that is how it brought the community together. Because we always think of the workman's hall. We have a little generation gap. I used to go there as a young boy to read the free newspapers, you know. And I used to play snooker or sing in the annual concert with the Millvoice Choir. But there was a risk of thinking that the workman's hall is just an old man's clubhouse, you know. So Blaenafon is incredibly active as regards the community spirit with the local council and everything. So the idea was to bring my work in, but also to bring in various bodies. And of course, with a family, families in a community don't always see eye to eye. So you had to walk very, very tenderly and bring all these different bodies together. And they all came together. And then working with a sort of young generation. They were called the World Heritage Ambassadors. Working with them in the same street where I started my career in the 1980s was an incredibly exciting period for me, really. A very exhausting period because they're so vibrant and so young, you know. But it was lovely bringing all these different groups, all volunteers, filling up the Workman's Hall in sort of Blaenafon, and everybody wanting to participate. John Perkins, second row forward for Pontypool in Wales, opened an exhibition of mine in Chapter over 40 years ago. Terry Cobner, you know, now the president of the Welsh Rugby Union, but also the local MP, Nick Thomas Simmons, with a double barrel name. They all wanted to partake. And then to the opening, to have people that came from all over the valleys, really, people that I taught many years ago. That was a highlight of my career, as far as exhibitions go, really.
But you did, I mean, I think it was justly rewarded, really, with that, with the reward that you did get for it, for being recognised, because there was a lot of effort went into not just the show, but you produced a book.
I know.
You enjoy the control of putting the complete package together yourself, don't you? Because you have an interest in graphics and photomontage.
I love the creative journey.
Right.
You know, it's a bit like when you're on your journey, you want control of it throughout, even from the initial concepts. You know, you have this initial concept. It might just be drawing something out, a little sketch, you know. And then you have the sort of ritual of taking the photograph, all these craft skills. It's a bit like when you drive, you know, I mean, you do all things in the subconscious, you know, but you're so excited that let's hope I get it into focus, you know. And when you get a picture and it's actually in focus, but then you get the lovely physiognomy, the response, they're so magical, you know. And then the craft skill, you know, the formalism that's involved, all the sort of visual elements, and then the craft skill, and then the final output, you know, the book, the exhibition is so important, really. And of course, my experience and my sort of fine art background as well, and my graphic design background is important, you know. And then to have a space, a building, whatever, it doesn't matter what size it is, but that space then is your canvas, you know, so you don't want anybody else poking their nose into your canvas, because that's your creative product, do you know what I mean? That's an important part of it. Every little space is worked out beforehand, do you know what I mean? And now I've become quite a professional at the way I put up an exhibitions. I've improved, do you know what I mean? But that's just come by experience, by going to the computer, working out, drawing everything out, measuring. That's a creative process. That's a creative journey that the author has the ownership of. So that for me is so exciting. It's so lovely when you have these initial thoughts in your mind, sketching, and you go to all these different processes, and then wallop, you see it in a space.
So when you were planning the exhibition, was the book in your head, was that an integral part of the whole package from the start then?
It was, yes.
Because I find that interesting, because you also, that book and the exhibition was a mixture of archive material and present day.
Yes.
You were including the youngsters and portraits as well.
Yes.
Were you still shooting as you were putting the book together?
I was, yes, and that's the exciting thing. You know, I'm just not wallowing in nostalgia. You know, the past is important. You know, but a past is important only its relevance to the future and to the present. You know, so of course the respectability of my past work really was a past work to sort of present work really, and to have this sort of balance, this combination where they both came together really, you know, was an integral part of the work. And then the book as a creative outcome, you know, I was talking earlier about the Bauhaus School, where all these different disciplines come together. I remember back in the 80s, I did a part-time job in Cardiff in the docks, and I worked for community design services, yeah, and they were working with sort of community groups, and there was all architects, they were all planners, and there was a fine artist and a philosopher. Well, a fine artist and a philosopher, what use are they going to be? But a fine artist who could actually take photographs, you know, and then going out into the communities, you know. So all these sort of mixed disciplines, I love that. But also graphic design is so important to me as well, you know, that discipline. And then the book, you know, even the feel of a book. I'm talking a little bit earlier about book binding as well. You know, the aesthetic feel of just opening a book and looking at it. And then the narrative goes through the book, you know, how everything reads together, juxtapositions and all that, you know, it's so important, really, you know.
Now, you've alluded to teaching a couple of times now, but let's go back to the start then. So you studied fine art?
Fine art, yeah.
At Newport?
Yes.
Yeah, back in, when was that?
1970s.
Okay.
1974, 1975 to 79. Yeah.
So give us that story then. You and I have discussed it previously, but the genesis then of Walter, the camera, because you never really set out. Well, you kind of did in a way, didn't you? I mean, in amongst the fine art. Tell me the story.
Well, as a fine artist, I had an enormous skill, a graphic skill, a drawing. Well, why was that? It made up for the inability to recognise colour. I had a tremendous colour blindness, you know. So therefore, if you lack in one area, you have strengths in another area. But I had something really that's been the foundation of all my work. I had a love and a passion for my home area. So on fine art, I wouldn't do graphics because I'm not going to be confined to a studio. No one's going to tell me what to do. With fine artists, we're bohemians. We can do what we want to. So I'd be out with a board and I'd be drawing everyday steelworks. Then I'd come back and have to go into the canvas and work on a canvas stuck in the studio. Oh, I didn't like that at all, you know. But I wanted to capture the spirit of my home environment, you know. And of course, fine art lecturers then didn't fully understand what I was on about, really. There was one person, though, and that was Keith Arnott. And he was... he empathised with my love for Caspar David Friedrich, you know. I love Caspar David Friedrich, you know. So he was the only one who really understood. When I said the spirit of my home, I think they thought I was into Eastern meditation or something, you know. They didn't fully understand, really. And then there was someone who really I owe a lot to, was Jack Crabtree. Jack Crabtree, who was an ex-miner from Salford, someone who we had a compatibility, you know, and he understood me totally. And he took me into the library and he showed me these photographs. I was starting to use photographs as a reference for my paintings a little bit, but they were secondary value, yeah. And I saw these pictures of the FSA. I saw Walker Evans. I saw Dorothy Lange. And me and Keith Arnott were wallowing over Lewis Hine. You know, this is a spirit, you know. And then I was sent down to documentary photography then, you know, in Newport, well-known course. So a fine artist going. I didn't really know how to use a camera at all. I had my grant. And I spent £30 on a Zenith E, and it goes down to all these students, and they've all got their Canons, they got their Nikons, they got their Billingham bags, and I got my Zenith E in a Tesco bag, you know, and they all look at me a bit strange, you know. Do you know what I mean? But there was something very, very important happening. Wales were playing a rugby match against Scotland, and I needed a ticket. You know, the only way I could get a ticket was sell my camera. So here I am, I've just been from fine art, allocated to documentary without a camera. So what did they do? They gave me a camera. And what camera did they give me? They gave me a Gandolfi. So therefore, I walks in. There's all the documentary photography. They're all very serious. Well, most of them were sort of mature students, you know, and their main concern was, have you got enough money for film? My main concern was, have I got enough money for beer? You know, my attitude, you know, I wasn't savvy at all. The only thing that I had an advantage, I had a love and a passion for my work. You know, we weren't savvy fine art students at all, but that attribute that I had, I've carried forward really, and then to be introduced to someone like August Sander. Oh dear me, you know, this is what I want to do, and then Hergé, you know, and then wow, they're recording, and of course my first artist was L.S. Lowry, Kathy Golowitz, all those artists, you know. So the art background was so important to me. Looking at the classical tradition, the way you balance things out, symmetron, the way you construct your image, wow, you know. And then light, the romantic tradition, the Gothic tradition. A 5x4 camera didn't really slow things down for me. From 3 days drawing, it speeded things up. But the fact I could draw and then look at the image upside down on a field camera, my first pictures were atrocious, you know, because I didn't know anything about photography. But that sort of naive approach to photography really helped me, really.
Well, it must have been a slope. I mean, a Gandolfi's not exactly a portable camera, is it?
Well, you know, I used to walk about 15, 20 miles a day, a tripod, all around the hills of Blaenafon. I'd have a flask of tea. I'd have cherry cake from F.W. Woolworth. And it was a sheer joy. And there's one thing about people in the valleys, even people that I know, you know, we were talking possibly a little bit earlier about cultural difference between southern England and coming back to the valleys, you know. They're very nosy in South Wales. They go, what are you doing then? What are you doing, Walter, with that, you know? And suddenly, being a very shy person, the camera helped me. It helped me get rid of my shyness. Mm-hmm. It helped me communicate with people as well, you know. And some of those portraits, the very first portrait I took with the Gandolfi camera, are as valuable now as they were then. Mm. Because they captured the physiognomy of the person. Yeah, they working class culture. But more important was the trust and the confidence that they had with me, you know. And they took me into the privacy of their own home, their own kitchen, to take their pictures, you know. And here I am, with a 5x4 camera, I'm spending 5 or 10 minutes setting up, you know, and I'm just taking one picture. That's it, you know. So that early photographic ritual was really the foundation for my work now. And I'm so indebted to the people of, say, the black ranks in Blaenafon, really, how they had the trust and the confidence. And I'm talking earlier, that's my style of photography, isn't it?
So in amongst your peer group then at Newport, studying fine art, and you kind of invading documentary photography to access cameras and what have you, were there any other artists kind of taking up the camera or using photography as part of their practice then, back then?
At that early stages, no.
It was you?
We had to have permission from the exam board for me to do photography.
Right.
You know, there was like almost a separation, you know. And even within sort of the fine art department, I was a realist. I was, you know, there was always a battle with the realist painters and the abstract painters. Do you know what I mean? Mm. And I was the hero for the realists, you know. And when I left fine art, you think I'd left the team down. Do you know what I mean? And of course, for photography and photojournalism, compared to my background, was a different ball game completely, really. Mm. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I wonder what drew you to, you know, in fine art you can have landscape, and you're surrounded by a landscape here in MERTHYR. You see that very often in the art studios. I mean, I went to art school, so you know there'd be a whole mix of different styles and genres. But you're definitely of that more humanist school in terms of that interest in people, I think. And was that there from the start then, even with the fine art? Was it about portraiture?
It was.
And transposing that to the camera then?
Yeah, one of my greatest heroes was Kathy Golowitz. You know, someone who could draw and use charcoal and just with the lines get a sense of feeling, a sense of emotion with her work. Wow. I just absolutely loved her work, really. So transferring that naturally to the photography. I didn't do it consciously. You know, I think I'd had that sort of fine art background. I loved Lowry as well. I mean, he was important as well. A topographical artist. There was something like Joseph Wright of Derby as well. You know, there was a mixture of light coming in as well. That sort of classical, you know, the way you structure the image, but the romantic tradition, being aware of light, making sure when you go and do a landscape work around Blaenafon, it's the right type of day, or it's the right type of light. Light just comes over and flickers and alters. And that horrible landscape, all those horrible cold tips my father couldn't stand because of his mining background, you know. But when the lights hit it formally, they become beautiful.
Well, Lowry did some studies in Bargoed.
I know.
Yeah. I
know. It's ancient. You know, it's from Bargoed, you know. So there's a strong Welsh connection. And there's a picture that I love of Ellis Lowry, the man with the red eyes.
I haven't seen that one.
Well, he had two good pictures. He was on a train in Newport and he took a picture of a woman with a beard. All right, that's quite well known. But I've got the portrait in the other room here now of the man with the red eyes. Lowry could draw. He was a tremendous... He stylised the matchsticks men. What a draftsman he was. But the picture was of the death of his mother and the red eyes, you know. And I used to look at that picture and I used to think to myself, what will I be like when my mother dies, you know? I was in the Christian ministry for 10 years and I took my mother's funeral, you know. Mm-hmm. And I think to myself, I'm back to Lowry. You know, how those images can be so important to you, really. And they've had an effect upon me. So that fine art background was so essential, really. And when I go to Cardiff Museum now, I get so excited when I look at the work of Richard Wilson, when I look at the work of Pompeo Bottoni, you know, because I've taught all this portraiture, the classical tradition, whatever, you know, to my students. And I see those beautiful paintings, you know, and then I look at Rembrandt and I see the way he uses light. And I love light. You know, the classical tradition, balance, order, Gothic, Claratos, light, mood, the romantic tradition, and then realism. You know, no idealism, realism. You know, working class culture, everyday objects, you know, have value, have dignity. My miners are in frames. They're not going to be pinned to the wall. No. They're special. You know, the greatest pride I ever had recently was the opening of the Miners' Tribute exhibition in Carmarthen Castle Museum and the miners come along, you know. I thought that was a privilege for everybody there. And they read out their memoirs, they read out their poems. Reading out a poem with Brian. 40 years ago, we were together, 2 foot in the dark underground. Wow. Memories are treasure for my lifetime, really. And we've become very, very close friends, you know.
When you say 2 foot, do you mean 200 feet? Or...
No, 2 foot coal seam.
Oh, a 2 foot, right.
Yeah, 2 foot coal seam. That's when I was taking his pictures, you know. Incredible, really. And that's why I love my photography. I love my photography, you know.
I get that one. I definitely get that.
But you know, that's almost, oh, he's full of ego, he is, you know.
No.
But it isn't that. I love Brian.
I mean, you
I love Jesse Healy. I love Jesse Healy. you know, all those names, wham. You know.
I mean, you describe yourself as a practicing, or you say you practice as a topographical artist, I think.
Right, yes.
So this is a quandary for me sometimes. You obviously studied fine art. When is a photographer not a photographer, but an artist? Is that... Do you still paint and draw?
Yeah, do you want me to go back to the historical tradition, systematic, of pictorialism?
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So how did photography evolve? Well, it was in its infancy, wasn't it? It was inferior, wasn't it, to painting, sculpture, architecture.
I think it was seen very much as a technical fad, almost like today.
Yes.
We would probably
so for how did it establish itself? By the art of imitation. it copied painters, isn't it? Like blurred pictures, you know, or copying the classical tradition of like Oscar Irlander, two ways of life, isn't it? But then there was a battle within pictorialism, wasn't there, you know? Because, to be honest, anybody can take a picture. There's no skill today, isn't it? Well, you've got to go to press it. It does it all for you, isn't it? But then Frederick Evans and the Seer Steps, Wells Cathedral, and the light flickers down. But hang on, you've got to make a creative decision. You've got to make a creative decision. Let's have a look at the weather forecast. Yeah? Let's have a look at the light. Let's have a look at the angle of view. All those are creative decisions. And then naturalism comes about, you know. And then the battle between the gum splodgers and straight photography, and then Stieglitz, you know, brings photography into an art in itself, gets away from the crutches of painting. Marvellous. I haven't got a problem with photography and art. I think art is just you're recording beauty. And I come from that background, fine art background, you know. So I'm an artist, so I don't care. But I think what's lacking today within education is there's not a systematic teaching. You know what I mean? I mentioned photographers now, you know, that have gone through that battle, the ideological battle to establish photography as an art form.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And that's important to me. I love that battle because also I'm very political as well within my work. You know, I'm working things out. Do you know what I mean? And that's so important. So I don't worry too much. You know, only I'm a regional artist, a realist photographer, and that art background is that aesthetic background, and my study of beauty in the ordinary, the realist, or the avant-garde, the beauty of radical change and all that. I love Russian artists, you know. I like Alexander Rodchenko. I love all the sort of constructivist designers. What a field there is for us to understand the appreciation of photography right from the very beginning. The pencil of nature. Fox Talbot couldn't draw, could he? You know what I mean? So they use the sort of diorama or whatever, isn't it, you know?
I think you very much demonstrate, you mentioned politics, in terms of that socialist, communist even, you know, that thing about photography has always kind of been embedded in protest as well, you know, from the very start, when you get uprisings and just anger. And Wales, this area of Wales, particularly with the mining, very much was a kind of victim of, the Tories in the end, put that whole end to the thing. We'll come to the Valleys project in a minute, but I just wanted to touch on you then going into spreading the word, almost evangelising through teaching photography. Because when you left, you didn't leave Wales, you came back to the Valleys, you were working in the Valleys, and one of the things I never experienced it, but I hear it again and again, and people were so appreciative at the time of the photography workshops that happened.
Yes. But I did fine art, if you became an art teacher, you were a failure. You know, you must do your own work. So the fact that I was a realist painter, when I left art college, I had my own gallery in Blaenafon. I could do sign writing, I could do photography, I could do everything, do you know what I mean? And then I took my work down to sort of department stores, Debenhams, Marks and Spencer's and all that, if they would sponsor this very futuristic project, study of the department store in Britain, you know. So I just take my grimy pictures of miners, and they're all so enthusiastic, do you know what I mean? And that was going very well. But suddenly I had a phone call from an old friend of mine, an old college friend. Would you like to come up to a school on the Gurneys and Merthyr Tydfil and help me to teach these students and instill into them a love that we both have for the valleys? That was much more exciting than working with cosmetic pretty girls they were, you know, in Debenhams or whatever. My intention was never to do teaching at all, but then to have an excitement then for other people's work and to share it. I found that so rewarding. And that was a 2-year residency, one of the longest artist residencies in Britain at that time. And then that went so well, I then became a community artist with the MERTHYR Rhondda and sort of Cannon Valleys. Workshops in Penrhys, the Gurneys, the Boys Club, Aberfan, and the value of photography.
And
social value.
what was the approach to that teaching then? I mean, how did you suck those youngsters into this form of image making, just the visual arts? I mean, if you extend photography into that, I mean, how did you hold their interest?
Well, really, I'm like a salesman with a brush, aren't I? I'm going around selling my product. I'm myself. I love what I do. Do you know what I mean? So that's the starting point. Do you know what I mean? And then to show them the historical background, show them work of August Sander, show them work of Cartier-Bresson, you know, and then to have a love and a passion for the area that you come from. Come on, let's show people really. Let's show the wider audience. Got to be careful what I say now. The people in the valleys are not thick. We're very cultural, you know. And to have it, to have us all working together was really exciting. It was so exciting that the work was shown in the Earth Eisteddfod in Merthyr that it was banned. They banned the exhibition because they weren't used to that type of realistic work, really, that honest work. I found that so heartbreaking.
Because another one of your favourites, I think, was Diane Arbus as well, wasn't it?
Diane Arbus.
I mean, talk about just honest characters, honest portraitures. Whatever type.
She's a horrible person, really. I would want my portrait taken by Diane Arbus. Read the account of Jumingaria with Diane Arbus. Brilliant photography. Simple technique as well, because I use the sort of the twin. There it is. Yeah, the Mamiya. Bang, straight on flash. Brilliant. Showing archetypes of America, you know, subcultures as well. Oh, I love the graphic power of the way she filled the frame of her work. So yes, it's got to be August Sander. It's got to be Diane Arbus. Beautiful work. Yeah, I love the work really, and everything with my photography is very, very simple really. F45, light meter down to the ground, mid-grey, bang, that's it, you're off. Just flash on the thyristor, automatic code, boom, zoop, straight on. So simple. And you're just into what we call the narrative of the image. Do you know what I mean? But the craft skill was very minimal, really. But that helped me, really, to get into the deeper issues about the social concerns as well.
And how were those workshops being funded at the time, then? Because I'm guessing they grew in popularity, word was spreading, because the various valleys had them. Phil Cope over in the Garrow Valley was running workshops as well.
Well, the idea was that the Welsh Arts Council should support individuals. And the South East Wales Regional Arts Council should support groups. I was the only one that was supported as an individual, really. The South East Wales Arts Association kept on giving me a grant every year for the workshop in Penrhys. It carried on for 10 years. The workshop in Bethesda Arts Centre in Merthyr, in the Boys Club. But of course, there was mixed matching as well from the local council, you know, as well. And then I was started to get into education as well. I set up a course in Merthyr College, set up a course in Abervale. I was working with the Polytechnic of Wales as well on the sort of communications course and cultural studies. So I was bringing students to me to do women's workshops up on the Gurness as well, you know. So I could see the value of bringing all these different groups together. And up in Penrhys, boys who'd been involved in the riots, you know, I could see the social potential of photography, you know. Now they could do something, should we say, worthwhile, but where they could get a pride and a dignity, you know, from their image taking. I remember going to Treorchy, you know. Once I was in a workshop down in Treorchy and I brought the boys from Penrhys. This is a good incident.
One incident, that sounds like an interesting word.
And of course the people in Troy didn't want the boys from Penrhys. And there's this one atrocious person from Treorchy, and he was arguing with me, you know, we don't want these boys. And the boys were there, and he came so close to me giving them what's called a dowless kiss. In a Christian way. I mean, I'm an evangelical, but, you know, it's that close. And as a result, the respect that I got from those boys from Penrhys, that I was standing up for them, you know. And of course, they then came over to Merthyr College and did courses with me. But I saw the social potential of education as well. That was so important to me, you know. And of course, no one in Wales wanted me. You know, I did try for lecturing jobs. I went for a job in one college. I won't mention it. And she said, oh, well, Judge, well, the governor said, that's the best interview I've ever had, she said. But but stay out of education. I think you should go into politics. And there I am, so disheartened. I got a mortgage to pay here and everything, I've got elections, an easy way out now, But of course I then went to sort of Brockness College, which was very different.
So this is when you left Wales. But before we go there, that time, having that support then to run those workshops, when you were making the pictures, was that giving you the opportunity to make like the Penry's portraits you were doing, the guy with the sort of pigeons?
Yes, it was, yes. Yes, so I was, and of course the Merthyr skins as well. One of my most favourite bits is the Merthyr skins, So of course working with the local newspaper, each week then the local newspaper would put a picture in from our town, from Merthyr, So there was it was bringing people together again from the grassroots, really. In other words, I'm at the coalface, really. I worked at the coalface with my photography, really, So everybody was aware, everybody wanted to sort of partake as well.
When we talk about you as a topographical artist, that thing about types then in August Sander, one thing I always wanted to ask you, from the department store work, and there's that kind of one image you've got with a lettering artist with a lettering brush in the department store, did the Santa work come out of that, or vice versa? Or the Santa series?
Well, why did I do...
Because that's a fantastic set of it. Is that ongoing? Are you still shooting?
Yeah, I know. Why did I want to do the department work? Well, had I come into private enterprise, had I discovered Thatcherism, Well, I thought, I'm going away from the valleys now, with my work. But I didn't really go away because I do my annual trip. My annual trip was to go to a department store, wasn't it? So that's part of my culture, And then to go into the shops within a shop is so exciting. But then the highlight of the year, part of our culture and tradition, you're going to see Santa whether you like it or not, and then to see Santa Claus. Oh, I'm revisiting my childhood, So I didn't go with the intention of doing a study of Santa Claus. That came out of a larger study, really, of the life within the department store.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But of course that's happened with various projects, like for instance the sort of miners' memoirs, the miners' that came out of a larger project, and then the Santa Claus was so exciting. It was something that I really loved because it's taken me back to my childhood, but it's taken us back to an icon of sort of Western culture as well. And one thing that I loved about that. Who's that great graphic designer? You must know him that did Santa Claus. You must know him, Norman Rockwell. And I love the humour in his work as well, I like the history of Santa Claus. I like Thomas Nast as well, who was a great political artist, believe it or not, But I love that humour. And then Santa Claus for me was almost a breakaway from the more serious work, And how you can do still August Sander, it's still Diana Arbus, it's still juxtaposition next to each other. And then when you put the pictures next to each other, you're drawn in to make comparisons, and you have these great comparisons. And what a ridiculous thing we do in Western culture, is it? A man dressed up as Santa Claus. Oh, it's lovely, isn't it? And
you're almost sometimes getting double the value for your money, because very often when the kids are on the lap, when you're getting on those wider shots, not just a big Santa close-up, the kids haven't changed, have they? Some of them are screaming their eyes out, looking at their mother, saying, why the hell am I sitting on the strange man?
I know. And there used to be queues and queues and queues.
Yeah, we had the same in Scotland.
Do you know something? Yeah. I was in the queue. I had to be in the queue. And then the excitement, I'm still a young boy. And I'm waiting. I waited to see him. And he's Santa Claus then, isn't he? He isn't a man dressed up. No, he's Santa Claus. And the excitement of seeing Santa Claus, And I wasn't the one where it was a trauma. Oh, I was in awe of Santa, It was a lovely experience for me. But for some it wasn't. But you're going to do it anyway, because we did it. That's part of our culture. Oh, it's lovely.
So here we are in 2024. Do you know how many Santa images you have? How many portraits do you have?
Do you know, I've got cupboardfuls of rolls of 120 film that I haven't yet developed.
No.
because I went from film into digital, but I was still taking film and digital because we couldn't trust digital then, could you? You know,
right.
I still got loads, and I've got quite a lot, you know. But I'm not like a sort of a photojournalist. So I don't take loads of pictures,
sure.
you know. So when I say loads of films, you know, I might have 30, 40 films undeveloped, you know. So I've got a large collection of Santa Claus, but I've consolidated it now into a really good series of Santa, showing the different personalities, you know. But also I bring in the sort of historical side, the actual context, Santa artists as well, and how Santa Claus came about, you know, through pagan origins, religious iconography, you know, the Victorian Santa Claus. I find it fascinating.
I think for anyone listening, they should look at. I mean, your website is very good, and I think because you've got the sets of images and the projects broken down. I do have one criticism though.
What's that?
You don't really have a listing of the exhibitions that you've done, and you must have done.
I know.
I mean, I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't bother.
Why?
I don't know.
It's important, don't you
Yeah,
think?
no, I don't. I just think of the present, really. You know, it's almost like doing a CV. It's not, you know.
You're making it harder for people like me,
Walter,
Walter, to do the homework before they speak to you.
It,
Because
right.
I had to hunt
Yeah,
for
I
the
forget.
background material.
And I forget. Like for instance, we were talking to the old technician from Ffotogallery, and he was saying, "Look, there's an exhibition of you done many years ago with
Mark.
Yeah,
Mark
Mark,
Atlas, yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Mark Atlas, yeah. And there was an exhibition called Perspectives with myself, Sue Parker and Chris Gregory. Chris Gregory was from Newport and Sue Parker, you know. And it's also represent a 35mm photographer, a medium, and a large format photographer, you know.
Oh, great.
And of course that was shown in a recent exhibition that Ffotogallery had down in Penarth to celebrate its anniversary, 40-year anniversary or whatever. But I don't... You know, I don't keep a catalogue of exhibitions.
Do you know, I'd heard about your work, and you've been on our list, believe it or not, on the Ffoton list to try and speak to for years. But I think the very first time I saw your work in an exhibition was in Ffotogallery in Penarth, when you showed with Hyoldon Davies back in 2016.
Yes, indeed.
And you were showing the Blaenafon work.
Yes, yeah.
And the people on the doorsteps.
I know.
You know, the old wifeys and the kids. And I loved it. It was great.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Just it's the honesty in those simple portraits that I think people underestimate the power of that kind of work. And no one's, well, people are doing it today, but do you think people are making enough of a documentary record of contemporary Wales? No. I mean, this is now, that was then, but just that study, careful study, meticulous study of the people in a place, the characters, because they are all characters down here.
Yeah, there must be, and
I don't see an awful lot.
And there are, you know, but you mustn't compare their work with my work, yeah, because my work is unique. It's unique in the fact of where I come from. It's unique as regards the fact of my personality as well. You know, do you know what I mean? So when I look at work, is there a Richard Billingham of the South Wales Valleys? Is there someone who's a fine artist? Yeah, a typical fine artist who's not a real photographer because he doesn't know how to use a camera. He's pathetic. He's pathetic, like me really. When I first went down into Newport documentary photography, I'm not a real. I had this conversation with sort of Ron McCormack, you know, and he empathised with those of us who were fine artists, and we went with a group of photographers who really knew what they were doing. We don't really know what we're flipping doing. We are fine artists. Do you know what I mean?
But that's good to take a completely different slant on it, isn't it? To look at photography in a different way.
Yes.
But with you, it is very much that, for me, that humanist, that it's about the people.
Yes.
And that study of a people, kind of contemporary Wales.
Yeah. There must be a sincerity within your work. I mean, obviously you get passion from me, because I'm passionate. I love what I'd like you to read something to you a minute, yeah.
Sure.
And I could read you several things really, which will make your heart.
Just don't cover the mic.
Yeah. A highlight for me was the icon of the MERTHYR skins, yeah. Of
right,
MERTHYR, yeah.
Paul wrote about this. Paul Carrotts wrote the intro for your book, didn't he? And he gave this a great mention. But yeah, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, and of course, recently, I think it was just last year, one of the greatest honours that I ever had was to take pictures of the funeral of someone called Trini, an original skinhead. You know, I thought to myself, they want to take pictures of the funeral, you know.
And he was from?
He was from MERTHYR, one of the skinheads.
Right, yeah.
And so that's Trini, yeah. So they asked me to take pictures. You know, the family asked me. And I thought I was quite hesitant because there's certain things that I will avoid. I keep away from Aberfan because of the family. I don't touch that. And, you know, funerals, because it's so solemn. But I went there, well, what is this going to be like, you know? And I went into a non-conformist chapel, you know, and that's my background. I'm a non-conformist evangelical, yeah. Full of skinheads. And then they played The Clash. Bang! Bang! The Dr. Martens. I thought the balcony is going to collapse, you know, incredible. And then the minister, you know, gives his message. Utmost respect. Better respect than in some Christian funerals. Stunning. And then they asked me afterwards, could you take pictures of us, the older generation, you know. I didn't take hardly any pictures, but I took a picture of Trini's Dr. Martens on top of the coffin, you know. And why did I do that? Well, I was a skinhead, you know. I could relate, you know. And this is a lovely message that he had from one of the skinheads here. By here it is, and I'll read it to you. You watch us all grow. Your presence around the Gurness, that's on MERTHYR, yeah, made us youngsters feel like we had a chance. Here's this fella with tripods and cases and equipment. He wants to photo us. Came out with unbelievable pictures, and you always knew how to get the pictures before you even clicked the button. Once again, you caught electricity today and was forever courteous and gentle. God bless Walt. Wow. That means more to me than any list of exhibitions. You know, that's what my photography's about. I got other records. That's why I love the medium of photography and what it's done for me. To record an area that I love, really. You know, people that I love. Right? I got such a pride and a great dignity of my upbringing, you know. You know,
it's interesting portraiture, isn't it? I was having this conversation because the latest issue of Offline Journal that I do, separate from Ffoton, is about portraiture. And, you know, normal people very often don't have that. They'll have family photographs and things done in jest and whatever, you know, groups. But a simple, straight portrait photograph, very few normal people have it. And it means a lot when they have it done by, I think, a photographer.
Yeah. Portraiture is really beautiful. But they come of great value in years to come as well. When my father passed away, didn't like me doing art or photography. Boy, do a sensible career, be an engineer, you know. And then he came to an exhibition of mine in Chapter that John Perkins opened. And I got a picture of my father, you know, there. That's, you know, the value of portraiture. It's individual value, isn't it? You know, that's so important. Then it's a collective value. Then it's a cultural value. Then it's a natural value. It goes within different boundaries, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean? When you look at my photography, you know I've gone beyond the boundary of the homestead, haven't I? Because it's in the context of a broader culture, isn't it? You know, an art and design culture is definitely there because you can see that within the work. You know, someone's saying to me, you know, this morning, oh, you know, your work's like, it's like paintings, really. And I feel, well, that's quite good, because I gave a painter the colour blindness, but I can still appreciate the light. You know, I can still appreciate the actual structure of the image, but I also know about the Gothic tradition. You know, I also love the classical tradition, the romanticism, the realist tradition. All that's part of a broader field that actually come from. Do you know what I mean? And whatever context photography is in, even if it's someone who's passed away that you loved and you got strong memories, and that picture so valuable. And then to appreciate a picture, should we use the word art? That is a piece of art. because of the formalists. You know, there are two ways of putting the picture together, and I've used it in my teaching, and it's used by John Ruskin, yeah. And it's called, I hope I'm getting this right, the thesis and the theora, yeah. The formalist, objective way, the visual language that you use, like detail, get it in focus, shape the exposure, you know, all that subject. And then you come over to the theora. Well, what does detail mean? Well, truth, isn't it? You know, it's got to do with truth. Well, how do you get, like, for instance, mood? Well, shape, underexposure. Do you know what I mean? So learning that language and then coming over to the narrative, you know, both aspects are important, isn't it? And of course, where did who wrote The Americans? No, it isn't the
Kerouac. Jack did the
Robert,
the essay for the Robert Frank book, didn't he?
Robert Frank, the Americans and the Down Arbors, they're almost nihilistic photographers, really, snapshots, you know. They get away from documentary photography being beautiful pictures, do you know what I mean? And then there's someone like me wants to take honest pictures, but I still want to take beautiful pictures as well, really. When I look at August Sanders' work, I find his pictures beautiful. I really do. Did you know anything about bokeh? Did he? I don't think so. You know.
But that's part of the beauty of that kind of technology and the simplicity of those kind of lenses and light, wasn't it, back then?
Yeah,
and we get too confused today with technology and trying to do things.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say. The simplicity of my approach really helped me. You know, it's only now I begin to understand it. You know, and I can be a bit more clever now, and I can use it within my work. I suppose my work's become much more polished now, much more sophisticated, really.
It's interesting that the boundaries of having studied at art school, I did painting and drawing and kind of rue the day that you can lose those draftsmanship skills if you kind of fall out of it too much. But just the simplicity of drawing, I used to love it.
I know.
Life drawing classes, fantastic.
About you working things out.
Yeah, but what I find interesting about the viewfinder and photography, though, is that set frame. So it's composition now, isn't it? And you're thinking about it. Whereas when you're painting, unless you have got a frame you're working with, it's inclusion and exclusion. It's what to include and what to exclude. That makes even a simple portrait quite interesting. I know.
Or if you're someone like Degas, you know, and he does the sort of precise cropping with his ballet dancers, you know, the photographic thing of cropping your image, which is quite nice, isn't it? You know, it's instead of getting a classical painting like by Poussin, you know, where everything's worked out perfectly, you know what I mean? And you get that lovely cropping, really, you know, what we would call arbitrary cropping. Do you know what I mean? Well, it isn't arbitrary cropping, it's done on purpose, you know. That exercise where things just come in on the edge of the frame. Well, Cartier-Bresson does that, doesn't he? You know, the decisive moment. Well, what is the decisive moment? Whereas with the form and the design comes in with the incident, isn't it? You know, and when that magical thing happens. Well, the magical thing happens with me is I got all the structure and the design, but I got that lovely expression from your face that says something about your personality. Wallop, yeah. I'm a long version of Cartier-Bresson.
But going back to those, sorry to hark on about these workshops, but when you were working with youngsters, was there old people coming into those workshops as well?
Yes, it was.
So it was quite a mix of the community.
Yeah, a mixture.
Where does that work now then?
Sorry?
Was it collected locally? The work they were producing.
Yes, it was collected by the South East Wales Arts Association. I think I've got some work still in the attic.
I was going to say, is it still accessible for people to see, you know, as in records? Because very often as libraries close, these things disappear.
Actually, the actual memoirs that I've done with the miners now, I got memoirs from the young people up in Penrith. Even I took some of the young boys who were involved in the riots into the school in Penrith, and they were teaching little school kiddies. They were sat on the small chairs, you know, and the little kiddies would do their memoirs. And then they do their comments, things that I like and I don't like. I don't like stray dogs. Well, in Penrith, you'd have all these sophisticated dogs running around free, you know, Rottweilers or whatever, you know. And another comment was I don't like riots, you know, and all that. You know. And I've still got those little comments. Now it's gone into the miners now. Do you know what I mean? So yes.
So,
And an interesting, a young boy from Penrith, I shouldn't say this really, but a young boy from Penrith just got hold of me about 2 months ago. And he goes, how much I enjoyed your workshops in that little junior school. And I remember that little boy once, we're coming back to the Doubtless Kiss again, yet butted another little pupil, you know. But the value, I was talking to a student today, and we were in the exhibition that I taught, you know, in Penydre. Never undervalue the work that you are as a teacher. Don't have ownership over their work. You know, you shouldn't get extra credit. You know what I mean? But you know, the value that we have influencing people's lives just a little bit. It makes your work worthwhile, doesn't it? Really, you know, and that's why I love my work as working as, say, a sort of community artist. Really, you know, you're making a contribution to the community in which you live, isn't it? And now my photography is doing that. Anyway, isn't it? You know, I'm doing that now without teaching, because I still teach for my photography of the exhibitions or whatever.
So back in the day, then we're into the late 80s now. You were working, I think, as a community artist.
Yes.
The politics was kind of rife then
Yes.
with Thatcher.
Yeah.
But Sir Beardmore and the Ffotogallery had
Yes.
instigated the Valleys project, the
Yes.
Ffotogallery. And then you were approached, I think you were second, you were second from the last, wasn't it? I think it was Walter Toohey, who was the final
Yes.
artist that contributed.
Yeah.
But
William
T, I beg your pardon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to describe the genesis. What was the relationship? Why did you want to get the famous billboard up? Why and how did it come about?
Two reasons, really. I was doing an MA in Cardiff. The course leader then was John Ginger, a tremendous Renaissance man, and someone who really understood my work and had a respect for the workshop that I was doing. They were all students. We were all doing the MA, but we were doing our research by practice, if you want to. So of course all students were doing their workshops, you know, and they all came up to Penrith, you know. And when they came, just entering Penrith was an experience, you know. So the outcome of my work for the MA, you know, what was I going to do? Well, I wanted to get my work outside the gallery for a start. That was important. So this was before the advent of Facebook, before computers were invented when the Valleys. We never had computers then at all, you see. And so I thought, bring my work out, yeah. And I loved photomontage as well. My hero was John Hartfield, yeah. And I thought, what I want to do now is get it outside of a gallery, yeah, and to bring in open discourse, yeah. Not like propaganda or images that you just look at, did you? Or we call it, what is a polemic, yeah? I wanted a polemic to stimulate discourse. And I thought, the people that I want to contact, they're not going to go to a gallery. They wouldn't even go to a photo gallery, yeah. Billboard. Beautiful idea. I wasn't a participant for the Valleys project at all, because they were commissions. I went to the photo gallery.
You imposed yourself on them.
I imposed myself. But at that time, there was a change of curatorship. A great old-fashioned modernist like myself, Chris Coppock. So there was a political grounding in his work as well, you know. And wow, I said, so it was different to the other photographers. It was an initiative from myself, really. And then an empathy and a compatibility with someone from Northern Ireland. Do you know what I mean? And it was tremendous then, right? To put this work and also to get all different bodies involved, where there were discussions in. There was something going on, the post-industrial area, called the Valleys Initiative. Peter Walker, and he was promoting the Valleys Initiative. He was coming up to MERTHYR, and he was saying jobs for all by 1999. It was a famous speech.
So this is the Tories again.
This is the Tories again.
Power. Yep.
And my friend in Overs was going to work on Friday. Yeah. Saturday was a letter through his letterbox. No work. Monday. Made redundant. So it's that paradox. I think Paul Cooper said that there was an anger within myself, really. Well, I don't know if there was an anger. It was photomontage as the ability to reveal lies. You know, it uncovers things, you know what I mean? And that's why I loved photomontage, you know. And I wasn't worried about experimenting as well. Because if you're a documentary photographer, you just got one definitive image to make you famous, and you want that image. I didn't care now. I was back to Valerie Singleton. I was back to Blue Peter. I was back to a shoebox. I was back to a toilet roll. Put together, you get a tank. Oh, this is fun, you know. And don't care now about the. It was experimentation, and that's what photomontage was, you know. And also, you shouldn't use words with your images, but the power of the word as well, to bring that together. And the graphic ability, that graphic skill, you know. You're doing a billboard in an open space where people have got to read with a car. If it's too much information, they're on the pavement, they've gone into a lamppost, you know. So that billboard has to be graphically designed different to one on a bus shelter. All those creative decisions. It was a relief, really, to get away from the individual image, really. And
so, just for context, Walter, the Valleys project, I think, was initiated back in about 1984.
Yes.
And it ran up until 1990.
Yes.
Now, you were approaching 89. So had you been taking a close interest in what, you know, Paul Rees had submitted, Rod McCormick?
Yes.
Roger Tiley?
Yeah, but I think a lot of us felt that it was dominated by the Newport Mafia, really.
Interesting.
Do you know what I mean? I thought, oh, yes, you know, I might have put an application in. I can't remember because it's dominated by the Newport Mafia, really. You know, but I think
then you had people like Francesca O'Dell, who was also doing people and families.
Yeah, she was great.
Kind of
and there was Mike Berry as well, who came to visit me when I was in the Dowless Flats. Do you know what I mean? Yes, they were. You know, but we.
And then there was Bailey, who also imposed himself on them.
I know, and there was so much criticism upon David Bailey, even when I was on the Newport documentary photography course. You know, David Bailey was ostracised, really. But wow, what a photographer he is.
So all that work was being created. This was the Valleys project in motion.
Yes.
And then Walter goes and imposes himself.
Yes.
What was in your head then? So they hadn't asked you by this point, but you went and said what?
Well, I said, well, I've got this idea now, Chris. You know, let's put this together, and it was mainly for the MA show, right? But of course, it's going to cost some money. This is now to put this billboard up. How much is it? £1,000 for a month or whatever. And we're going to put 5 photographic strips like that.
So this is about 20 foot, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're talking a major billboard by the side of the road.
Yeah,
advertising
5 foot.
Yeah.
So how are we going to do this? I've got to be careful what I say now, but Chris said, well, we've got to fund it, Walter. I will fund it, making it part of the Valleys project, you know. So that's how that came. That's how that came about, really. You know, there was funding for it, really. And they put it in Dowless Top. They put it in October. And what happened, Dowless Top, end of October? They put a new billboard up, wallpaper on top of photography. People shouldn't do that. The wind came, the rain came, and the post on top of mine fell down. And we had an extra month.
That was God speaking, wasn't it?
God speaking. What value for money that was. Brilliant. You know, but the debate that it opened, you know, the polemic, again, not forcing your opinions. You know, I have my own ideology, I have my own theology, I do not force that upon anyone. That should naturally come out in your work, you know. And then that's what I love about you know my photography as well, you know. Even the photomontage. It doesn't impose viewpoints, it draws people in.
So for the listener, we'll include the image itself and in situ as well by the road. But just for the listener, what is the composition? What is the structure? What is the actual work itself then? It's composed of?
Well, the most important thing is the text. The text comes before the image, and that was unusual. You know, something must be done, something will be done. My father always told me about King Edward VIII. That's before he had Nazi sympathies, before that was known, right? And how he came to the South Wales Valleys, how he came to Blaenafon, and how he was forced to come to Dowlas. The itinerary in Parliament, Dowlas wasn't on his itinerary to start with. He was forced to come to Dowlas, yeah. And in Blaenafon, he got out. There's many stories about how he got out and he spoke to the people. Don't forget now, we got class. I mean, everything had changed, you know. And then he comes to Dowlas, to the steelworks. In Blaenafon, he said something will be done. In Dowlas Steelworks, you know, something must be done. And that's why there's a different attitude towards royalty in South Wales and North Wales, especially within the valleys. Do you know what I mean? And that for me is like ancient mythology, that is. This hero of royalty, you know. He comes and he cares. It's a bit like the Aberfan disaster. And when Prince Philip and Lord Snowdon come to Aberfan, David Bailey, to me, made the Valleys project. He's a brilliant photographer. Lord Snowdon is an outstanding, dare I say it, Parkinson, brilliant photographer. But what did Prince Philip do? He wanted to have a shovel to get the slurry out. What did Lord Snowdon do? Did he bring his camera? No, he wanted to bring his shovel. But he made tea, cups of tea, you know. All these moral issues about Aberfan and about photojournalists coming to take their pictures, and one gets laid out by a miner. And then the journalist says to the police, "Did you see that?" And the police said, "No, I didn't see that." Do you know what I mean? I'm like Alfred Stieglitz. I'm an amateur, really. I love my work. I'm not a professional. I don't go in there because I do it for money. I do it, you know, because I do a good job. That old attitude of the amateur has gone, really. Do you know what I mean? I think I've gone off track now.
No. So going back to the actual billboard itself now, it's one and only exhibition would have been in situ, would it, on the road? Or did Ffotogallery, was it, I mean, what do they have in the Valleys archive then? The image, did you do a print, a reproduction of the actual?
No, just actual billboard. It's quite unique. The other ones then, the typical process really of an archival collection of prints, isn't it? You know, like Roger Titley, Paul Rees, or whatever. There's two things about post-consumerism and all that. You know, so therefore it was quite unique, like that. I thought it was lovely. It created a debate, you know, a discourse that was so important, really, and the MP all getting involved, you know, grassroots, and also working then on the sort of communications degree in the Polytechnic. Then the students, you know, they look at John Hartfield and they look at all that. Now there's something that's realistic. It's something relevant, you know. And then of course this then is outside. You know, I've always been art galleries seem to be a bit snooty. Do you know what I mean? And it gets away from that at that time, you know. But of course now we got Facebook. Haven't we, you know? So that's.
But on the billboard, so you touched on the topography part, the words, and for you those came first.
Yes.
So the pictorial elements then were what?
Yeah.
And where did they come?
There is a war memorial in Merthyr of a working miner with his wife. So I took a picture of the miner, an icon. So I wanted an icon, you know, to represent valley culture, yeah. And then it's a very simple graphic image, really, of just the mountainous landscape within the South Wales Valleys. Something dead simple. But from a distance, it's quite punchy, really. And
did you paint that?
I did, yes.
So the minor statue is a photograph.
A photomontage, cut out,
a
montage and put in front. I'm doing what Valerie Singleton did, with a shoebox and a toilet roll, really. But then the use of text. Do you know Alexei Brogovich? Do you know him? Yeah.
Harper's Bazaar.
Yeah, I know.
One influence to other photographers as well as graphic designers.
I know. So graphics has always been important to me. But also then the use of text was very, very important. You know, text was a starting point. In you know, very different. I was brought up possibly within, you know, photojournalism or whatever, the picture and then the words, whatever. But I love playing around with words as well. Yeah. You know, there's many other photographers that I can mention that I've forgotten really, now in my tender age and away from education for so long. But I love, the use of graphics really, and I love constructivism as well. Lovely use of text really.
And what about photography in Wales today then, Walter? What do you observe? What do you like what you see? What do you think we're lacking, if anything?
If I don't go into specifics now, right, and if I just mention general, the reason that Wales has survived as a nation culturally, how has it survived as a nation culturally? Decentralism. All different bodies, working separately. They don't really come together, But if one body gets conquered, that doesn't matter. There's another body that will survive. You know what I mean? That's tremendous, that is. But I've often found that those bodies don't work together. Do you know what I mean? And I find that quite sad, really. I feel like, why don't Ffotogallery, why don't the National Museum of Wales, why don't community groups, local museums, I think it is starting, why don't we all come together with a common aim and a common bond? Are you fulfilling that void now as Ffoton? Are you doing that?
No, I think we're Ffoton's very simple. Yeah. It was from the start, and it is to this day. It's to try and speak to photographers like yourself, who have made their crust in photography, in and around Wales, in any genre. And it was just to try and create our own archive in a way of just conversations with people. But the interesting conversations, and I've said this before, come from talking to people that have done it, who have an interesting, maybe even substantial body of work. Because that's where the interesting conversations.
But it could be like me. I enjoy the sort of decentralism. I enjoy working in my own little environment as well. Do you know what I mean? So I could be as much to blame as anyone. I'm very happy in my own little environment. When we first came to MERTHYR, I was talking to my hairdresser, and she said to me, where do you come from then? And I was saying, and I said to her, I used to live in the New Forest, I said, it used to take me 3 hours to get here. She said, 3 hours? She thought I meant tree forest. No, tree forest. And I said, I love MERTHYR. I said, oh, yeah, it's got everything in it. We got our own demo. We haven't got our own debenhams now. We got all Marks and Spencer's. We got everything. How often do I go to Cardiff? I am a little bit of an isolationist. Do you know what I mean? I'm part of a foundation degree course where they use me to do their module, and I go around doing loads of talks now, and I get tremendous welcomes, but not with the general fraternal of sort of photography, with Ffotogallery. Possibly there needs to be closer links. To make it healthier, really. And I need to.
But it's an organisation that's evolved over the years. It's been in a constant change in flux, isn't it?
Yes.
And you mentioned Chris Coppock, who I think was such an important character because of the legacy that he left behind.
Yes.
In commissioning the photo books, the catalogues.
I know.
That he did.
Yeah.
But that comes from just different personalities, doesn't it? And different tastes of curators.
Yeah.
And I think he was
I think
a great choice.
I think the fact I'm starting to work with museums a lot is excellent, And it was nice to see in the Valleys exhibition now, where they do Valleys Revisited, where they're working with local communities. And I was there, I was catching the bus down from MERTHYR, and in it was someone called Vicky. Oh, Vicky, I know Vicky, a friend of mine. She's having to work in the National Museum of Wales. And it was so lovely, to bring in sort of community groups as well. Do you know what I mean? But why don't Valleys Revisited work along with me as well?
Well, that's why I was going back to those workshops. The simplicity of something in the community is so important.
But possibly, am I to blame? I might well be to blame for that, But at the moment, I work well with museums. Within the Valleys, we are struggling. I work with museums where they're run by volunteers mainly. And I feel I'm going in, I'm promoting, culture within the Valleys. That's the important thing for me, really. And possibly that's what the National Museum of Wales That's what Ffotogallery needs to do. But they know there are existing artist practitioners. Call upon us. Let us work together, really. That's what I think is needed. And I'd be more than willing to do that. Yeah.
So why did you escape for 20 years then? We never touched on that. You continued teaching, but not in Wales, not in Merthyr.
But I couldn't find work. No one wanted me. So I was forced to go away. There was utter shock when friends, me and my wife, because we were very Welsh, apparently, how we went away. And I went for my interview in sort of Brockenhurst. It was so posh. And my Merthyr accent was very, very strong. They were asking me questions, and every other sentence I was going, in it. They decided straight away that they were going to have me, But they had to have a discussion for nearly an hour and a half.
Could you sense it?
No. I couldn't sense it because I was so nervous. I couldn't stop talking. The innits was coming out all the time. But they thought, how are students going to handle him? For a start, they're not going to understand him for a start. And of course he's worked in Merthyr up on the Gurners in Penrhys, and these students come from incredibly privileged, wealthy backgrounds. They took the risk. No difference. Family of man again. Edward Steichen, commonality of the human condition. Hugging a young student. Didn't hug female students very often. Lost her friend to cancer, And then a student, there was an opening talking to her parents. Her parents are quite elderly. I didn't say anything. They said, mind you, we're not her parents. Her mother was the one that was murdered. And the young girl went in for the door and she saw her mother with her 2 breasts cut off by an Italian. What a joyful student. And then a student, very wealthy from New Zealand, met up with a drug dealer. He took him to his parents' home. He smothered her in the pillow, and the parents covered up that. Wow. Students committing suicide because of the pressures of the exam. Any difference to Penrhys? Any difference to the Gurners? No difference at all, really. Great privilege of teaching, really. That, really.
And was that an art course or was it photography specifically?
I went there as what attracted me about the course, it was advertised, Bob didn't know what it was, but photographic arts, photography with an art environment, and then for me to go in and build it up at the strength, 300 students at its strength, and then I became head of an art and design curriculum, really. So there was fine art, there was textiles, there was fashion, there was graphics, really. And then I had a call to the Christian ministry. I was going to give it up, really, for a year. But then I had a series of cardiac arrests. And so that's the reason why I retired early, really.
So the old ticker brought you back then, did it?
Yeah, the health condition brought me back. Would we have come back?
But you've made up for it, Walter.
Oh,
I think
providence
in the time now you're back.
Oh,
wow, the work you've done.
Don't stop working now. It's absolute delight. I cannot wait now to go out now. The Miner's Memoirs came out of beautiful architecture in South Wales Valleys, Now, I'm doing this project now because I love architecture. I love Palladio and all that. So John Ruskin to talk all this clever stuff now, right? So I'm doing a beautiful architecture of South Wales Coalfield. And I showed to friends. They say, beautiful architecture of South Wales Coalfield. You've got to be joking. If there is, it's all been chucked away. And then we're in Aberdeen, me and Kerry Thompson from the National Museum in Wales, and we go to a different town each month, And there we are in Aberdeen. I'm taking this picture of a beautiful Palladio frontage, stunning. And I take this picture, and this quite elderly lady comes up. She goes, what are you two doing then? And Kerry says, well, I'm Kerry Thompson, Chief Creator from the National Museum of Wales. And he goes, and this is Walter Waygood, the well-known photographer. And we're taking beautiful architecture at South Wales Coalfield. And she looks at me and she says, beautiful architecture in Aberdeen. Wow. And right in front of her, looking up, was a beautiful specimen of classical architecture that we all take for granted. Artifacts of a local culture, a national culture, an international culture. Wow. fantastic, really. And out of that love for architecture came the Miner's Memoirs. And I just can't wait now to, I'm building up them in the Miner's Memoirs now. And I'm thinking at my tender age now, my generation in 10 to 20 years' time will be gone. And there'll be a record then. This tremendous record of core values that we seem to have left behind. The individualism, the identity politics, whatever you want to call it, has taken over the collectivity, That ethos that was so important. Ethos mainly to survive, really. But an ethos where you had dignity, where you had care, and a lacking of self-centeredness. Do you know what I mean? All those core values that we've lost. So sad. And when they look at my work, no one mentions photography at all. It's all about these cultural issues, social issues, political issues. They look at history, but they look at the present, but they're also making value judgments about the future as well, So.
Well, all power to your elbow.
Sorry, thank you. I absolutely love what I'm doing. And thank you for coming to talk to me. I know I talk and I talk too much.
No, it's been a fantastic opportunity. Long overdue, Walter.
Yeah.
But thank you.